The cameras flashed. The crowd jeered. At weigh-ins, he was a joke, a street fighter with no pedigree, no sponsors, and no respect. His opponent, a polished professional, stood across from him with a smirk that cut deeper than words. Reporters laughed. Promoters whispered that it was a mismatch designed to humiliate. Security had to step in when the pro shoved him, sending the crowd into hysteria. "This guy doesn't belong here," the pro sneered, his voice dripping with arrogance. From the back of the press row, a voice shouted, "Somebody get this dumbass a bus ticket back to the gutter." Faces in the crowd lit up with cruel delight. They thought the fight was already over before it began. But behind the clown mask, behind the ridicule, something darker stirred. A nightmare waiting to be unleashed. Where are you watching the video? Comment, and if you like the video, please subscribe and like the channel. The underground club reeked of spilled beer and desperation. Smoke drifted through the air like a fog that clung to the cracked ceiling. The sound of fists meeting flesh echoed louder than the bass from the broken speakers in the corner. No referees. No rules. Only chaos. This was where he was forged, a world of shadows, bruises, and bets whispered in the dark. Men shouted, money exchanged hands, and blood stained the floorboards that had seen 100 broken jaws. He stepped into that world at 15. Barely a man, but already carrying scars from the streets outside. Every night was a survival test. Some fought for pride. Others for money. He fought because there was nothing else. Because survival meant violence. Because the alternative was hunger. The air was thick with tension, the old-timers would say, and he felt it pressing against his lungs. He whispered to himself, 25 years, and every fight led to this. They called him reckless. They called him wild. They laughed at the idea that a brawler from the gutter could ever stand across from trained fighters with real coaches and sanctioned arenas. But they didn't understand. They didn't know what it meant to fight for rent money, to fight for respect, to fight because losing meant more than bruises. It meant being swallowed by the same gutter everyone said he belonged to. He remembered the faces. Faces of men he fought. Faces that blurred together in smoke and blood. Faces that appeared and disappeared like ghosts. He remembered the smell of adrenaline and iron, the way silence always fell just before the first punch landed. He had lived through that silence hundreds of times. And in those moments, he was alive. But the cage was different. The cage wasn't just survival. The cage was validation. For the first time, there were lights. Real lights. Cameras. Contracts signed with trembling hands. Promoters who told him this was his chance to prove he was more than a street brawler. Except behind the promises, he felt the sneers. He felt the trap. They weren't offering him opportunity. They were offering him up. Feeding him to the polished professional, the golden boy with his perfect record, sponsored gear, and interviews where his smile sparkled brighter than the cameras. The golden boy trained in pristine gyms. He had trainers flown in, nutritionists measuring every meal, reporters writing his legend before he had even earned it. And when asked about the street fighter, he laughed. A clown. A stepping stone. Nothing more. His camp echoed his words, mocking the very idea that this outsider belonged in their world. To them, this wasn't a fight. This was a spectacle. A cruel joke dressed up as competition. The street fighter didn't respond. He didn't trade insults at press conferences. He didn't give witty sound bites to journalists. Instead, he trained. The gym he used wasn't glamorous. The mats were torn. The bags were patched with duct tape. The smell of sweat and mildew filled every corner. But there was something alive in that space. Something real. Shadows flickered against the wall as he drilled until his lungs burned. Doubters' faces haunted him, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. Every strike he threw, every takedown he practiced, was aimed at those faces. His coach saw it. "They don't see it coming," the old man muttered. His voice was rough, scarred by years of shouting in gyms and backrooms. "But I do." The fighter only nodded. Silent. Focused. A man who knew words didn't matter. Only fists did. Fight week arrived. The media swarmed. Reporters circled him like vultures, ready to feast on his humiliation. "Do you think you deserve to be here?" one asked, his pen scribbling before the answer even came. "You've never beaten anyone good," another sneered. "Are you just here for the paycheck?" He sat through the questions in silence. His jaw tightened. The cameras captured every moment of ridicule, every laugh, every smirk. Promoters leaned against walls, whispering about ticket sales, about how the Golden Boy would crush him. The Golden Boy's fans lined up at open workouts, screaming his name. His opponent smiled, played to the cameras, threw perfect combinations on pristine pads. Meanwhile, the street fighter trained in shadows, sweat dripping into his eyes, body bruised but spirit unbroken. He knew what this was. It wasn't just a fight. It was a setup. A public execution dressed up as sport. They wanted him embarrassed. They wanted him broken. They wanted to prove that a man from the streets could never step into their world and win. The weigh-in sealed the mockery. Cameras captured every second as the Golden Boy shoved him, as security rushed in, as reporters laughed at the spectacle. Voices rang out. "He doesn't belong here. Somebody get this dumbass a bus ticket back to the gutter." The fighter stood still. He didn't push back. He didn't scream. He only stared, his eyes cold, unblinking. Behind the jeers, behind the insults, something darker stirred. Fight night. The arena glowed under bright lights, but to him, it felt the same as the underground club. The same smell of sweat and fear. The same roar of men who wanted blood. Only now the crowd was bigger. The stage was brighter. The stakes were higher. Walking down the aisle, he heard boos raining down. Hands pointed. Fans jeered. Faces twisted with mockery. But to him, it was all noise. He saw only one man. The man waiting inside the cage. The Golden Boy bounced lightly, smiling, hands raised to the crowd. He was the chosen one, the groomed product of a machine that demanded spectacle. The street fighter, by contrast, was painted as the villain of the story, the intruder meant to be broken, humiliated, and forgotten. But he carried the shadows with him. He carried the ghosts of every fight in every basement, every alley, every smoky club. He carried the voices of doubters, the sneers of promoters, the insults of fans. And with every step toward the cage, he carried the weight of injustice that pressed down on him his entire life. The door shut behind him with a metallic clang. The crowd's roar fell into a strange silence, heavy and suffocating. The referee's boots thudded against the canvas as he walked toward the center. The fighter's chest rose and fell slowly. His hands flexed inside the gloves. He could hear his heartbeat louder than the chants around him. This was no longer survival. This was destiny. And as the referee looked from one man to the other, the air grew thicker, heavier, as if the arena itself knew what was about to happen. The cage door closed. The silence was heavy, broken only by the thud of the referee's boots. The fight was about to begin. The cage vibrated as the door slammed shut. Metal on metal, a sound that echoed through the arena like a warning. The lights bore down, hot and merciless. The crowd's roar rolled over him, but inside, he felt silence. Only the thud of his heartbeat, heavy and steady. Across the cage, the Golden Boy smiled. He danced on his toes, loose, cocky. He raised his hands to the crowd, soaking in the adoration. To him, this was theater. A show designed to end with his hand raised, his record gleaming, his sponsors satisfied. He smirked, mouthing something only the closest cameras could catch. "This is too easy." The referee gave the signal. The bell rang. Round 1. The Golden Boy strutted forward, hands low, chin high. The arrogance was suffocating. He snapped a lazy jab, more taunt than strike, a performance for the cameras. The street fighter didn't flinch. He only stared. Then it came. The moment. A fist drawn not from technique, not from style, but from years of survival. From alleys. From basements. From the gutter everyone said he belonged in. The right hand exploded forward like a thunderclap. Flesh met bone with a sound that silenced the arena. A crack sharp enough to slice through the noise. The Golden Boy's eyes went wide, shock freezing on his face. His legs buckled. His body staggered. He stumbled back, mouth open but no sound coming out. The crowd gasped. Faces froze mid-cheer, transforming into masks of disbelief. The smirk was gone, replaced with pain. He tried to recover. He lifted his guard, wobbled on unsteady feet. But the street fighter didn't give him time. Years of instinct took over. He swarmed. Left hook. Right hook. A knee to the body that folded the golden boy in half. The sound of gasps and screams filled the arena. The referee hovered, hesitation etched into his body language. Almost as if he didn't want it to end. Almost as if he was willing the golden boy to recover, to fulfill the script written for him. But the street fighter wasn't waiting. Another right hand. Another sickening crack. The golden boy crumpled against the cage. His jaw sagged at an unnatural angle, broken clean. He reached for the fence with desperate fingers, eyes glassy, mind drowning in panic. The golden boy, the perfect product, the chosen one, was shattered. The crowd erupted in chaos. Half screamed in horror, the other half in disbelief. The silence that followed was worse. Heavy. Suspicious. The referee finally dove in, pulling the street fighter back, arms wrapped around his chest. The fight was over. But the injustice didn't end with the knockout. The doctors rushed in. The golden boy's corner surrounded him, shouting at the officials. Promoters' faces twisted with anger. This wasn't supposed to happen. The script was broken. The machine had been exposed. The street fighter stood in the center, gloves dangling at his sides. His chest rose and fell with every breath, but his eyes were steady, calm, unmoved by the chaos. He had done what they said he couldn't. He had torn apart the illusion. A reporter near the cage whispered, "His jaw, it's gone." The words spread through the crowd like wildfire. Shock turned to awe. The underdog had destroyed the man they built to be untouchable. But even in victory, betrayal loomed. The referee raised his hand reluctantly, as if forced. The boos from sections of the crowd rained down. Promoters whispered into microphones, already plotting how to spin the story, how to bury the narrative of the outsider's triumph. Backstage, chaos deepened. Officials refused to look him in the eye. The golden boy was rushed to the hospital, his career suddenly uncertain. Yet the cameras followed only him, not the victor. Interviews skipped the underdog. The headlines wrote themselves, "Golden Boy injured, shocking upset shakes promotion, Street Fighter ruins main event." But he didn't care. Because in that moment, he had proved them wrong. Every insult, every sneer, every whisper of, "He doesn't belong here," was silenced by a single punch. Later, in the locker room, his coach sat beside him. The air smelled of antiseptic and sweat. His knuckles were swollen, his face marked by the fight. But there was something different now, respect in the eyes of the men who once doubted. His coach broke the silence. "They'll try to bury this. They'll try to erase it. But they can't erase what you did tonight." The fighter didn't answer. He only stared at the floor, a faint shadow of a smile breaking through. For once, silence felt like victory. The world outside still raged. Promoters scrambled, sponsors panicked, and commentators debated if it was a fluke. But for those who saw it, for those who heard the crack of bone and witnessed the fall of the golden boy, the truth was undeniable. The nightmare had arrived. And for the first time, the world realized, the clown at weigh-ins was something else entirely. He wasn't a joke. He wasn't a stepping stone. He was the storm they never saw coming. The silence after the fight lingered. Heavy. Eternal. It was the silence of a system exposed, of arrogance punished, of injustice rewritten. The cage had been closed to humiliate him. Instead, it became the stage for his rebirth. And as he walked out of the arena, head held high, the crowd parted. Some stared in awe, others in fear. But all knew the truth. The nightmare was real. Don't forget to comment where you're watching from, like this video, and subscribe for more stories.